My girlfriend claimed, I need more solitude for meditation. Please respect that. I said, of course. Then I hired an investigator to uncover what this solitude really was and got photos of her with a yoga instructor. The shocking reveal? Me serving eviction papers from my condo. I guess you could say everything seemed fine, at least on the surface. My name is Oliver. I'm 32, a mechanical engineer living in Chicago. Tessa and I had been together for 3 years, sharing a high-rise condo just west of downtown. Things were smooth, predictable, comfortable. That was, until she asked for solitude time. At first, it didn't raise alarms. Tessa always leaned a little spiritual, talking about needing to recenter or realign her energy. So when she sat me down one night and said she'd be carving out Tuesday and Thursday evenings for creative meditation, I nodded along. She made it sound harmless. Just her in the spare room, incense burning, journaling, maybe a cup of tea and ambient music, but it didn't feel harmless. She was suddenly cagey about details. The meditations required makeup, nice clothes, a full tote bag. She didn't come out of the spare room. She left the condo entirely. Claimed she needed a more inspiring atmosphere, like a quiet cafe or the lakefront. When I asked what she did during those 3 or 4 hours, she'd shrug, smile, and say something like, "It's hard to explain." It was the kind of answer that made your skin itch. I tried not to overthink it. People need space, right? But something didn't sit right. Tessa started locking her phone. She'd never done that before. Her yoga mat and favorite hoodie started disappearing on meditation nights. Her car, which usually sat parked for days, now had more mileage than I expected, and her mood shifted. She'd come home glowing, breathless, like she'd just returned from some euphoric trip, not a few hours of solitude. If I asked how it went, she'd give vague answers or change the subject. Then there was the time she left her journal open on the kitchen counter. I didn't mean to snoop, I swear. But the words, Marco, breathe deeper into me, stopped me cold. I closed the journal like it burned. That name, Marco, not a coworker, not a friend I'd heard of. I asked her about it that night, trying to stay calm. Who's Marco? I said casually, stirring pasta. She froze mid-bite. Oh, just a character in something I'm writing, she said too quickly. The unease twisted in my gut. I smiled, nodded, played along. But my brain didn't stop turning, not after that. I started noticing more inconsistencies. A new playlist on her phone filled with Spanish guitar and soft male vocals. An Uber receipt that showed she'd gone nowhere near the lake. The final straw was one Thursday when she meditated until midnight and forgot to bring home the tea she supposedly left to steep on the balcony. That night, after she fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, chest heavy with that awful certainty you can't explain, only feel. I knew something was happening, but I didn't have proof. Not yet. The next morning, I called a guy named Frank, a retired cop my cousin used once during his divorce. He was sharp, discreet, and didn't ask a lot of questions. I gave him Tessa's usual schedule, some addresses, and a couple photos. He just nodded. Give me a week, he said. I'll let you know if she's really meditating. I didn't sleep much that week. Frank didn't waste time. 6 days after we met, he sent me a text. We should talk. Got what you need. I met him at a diner on the edge of Wicker Park, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and the coffee came in chipped mugs. Frank slid into the booth like he'd been there 100 times before, eyes calm but knowing. He placed a manila envelope on the table between us. She's not meditating, he said flatly. I nodded, throat dry. Go ahead. He opened the envelope slowly, like a doctor about to deliver a diagnosis. Inside were 6 photographs. Crisp, close, undeniable. There she was, my girlfriend, wrapped around a tall guy with long hair and a trimmed beard, the two of them laughing under string lights at a rooftop bar. In another, she kissed him full on the mouth outside a yoga studio on Halstead. Another shot showed her slipping into the passenger seat of a black Jeep, his hand on the small of her back. Frank tapped one of the photos with a stubby finger. Name's Marco Valencia. Teaches yoga classes in Logan Square. Instagram says he's all about divine touch and intimate movement. Real enlightened type. I stared at the photos, stomach twisting, heat spreading up my neck. It was all right there, not just infidelity, but comfort, familiarity. They weren't sneaking around. They weren't ashamed. Tessa looked relaxed, happy. That was the part that hit hardest. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just sat there, numb, nodding like I was watching someone else's life unravel. You good? Frank asked, gently. I am now, I said, and I meant it. He slid the envelope toward me. If you need anything else, let me know. But from here, you can handle it. I went home and poured myself a glass of whiskey. I stared out the window, the skyline blinking like it always did, and something inside me settled. I wasn't going to confront her with tears or accusations. That would only feed the drama. I was done playing the confused boyfriend. Instead, I called our building manager, Darren, a guy who liked rules and didn't like surprises. Hypothetically, I asked, how would someone remove a non-leaseholder from the property? There was a pause. Are you talking about Tessa? Let's say I am. He explained the process. A formal eviction notice, 30 days notice to vacate, proof of non-ownership, and legal backup just in case. I thanked him and took notes. Then I called a legal advisor my buddy Matt had used during his split. She laid out everything, what to document, how to serve the notice, and how to secure my place without stepping over any legal lines. That night, I opened a new folder on my computer. I named it Exit Plan. It had begun. No tears, no begging, just quiet, methodical movement toward freedom. It was a Thursday, one of her solitude nights. She left around 6:30, same as always, wearing her favorite maroon yoga set and a soft linen scarf. Hair curled, eyeliner perfect. She kissed my cheek like she always did and said, "I'll be back before 10. I just nodded, like usual. "Enjoy your meditation." She smiled, completely unaware. "Thanks, babe." I watched from the window as she climbed into a rideshare. Frank was parked down the block in a dusty gray SUV, camera lens just barely visible behind the passenger headrest. He texted earlier saying tonight was the final outing. He'd wanted one more confirmation before I pulled the trigger. At 9:42 p.m., I got the last photo. It showed her at a dimly lit cafe patio, straddling Marco's lap, arms wrapped around his neck. His hand was on her waist. They weren't hiding. They looked like people in love. I didn't feel rage. I felt cold, focused, like someone watching a fuse burn down to the dynamite, ready for the blast. I printed the best 3 photos and slipped them into the envelope with the eviction notice. Legal wording, dated signatures, 30 days to vacate. I slid everything onto the kitchen island, right where she always tossed her purse. She got home at 10:17. "Hey," she chirped as the door clicked shut behind her. "That full moon is crazy tonight." The lake looked near. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw me sitting on the couch, lights low, hands folded in my lap. I nodded toward the envelope. "That's for you." Tessa looked confused, maybe even amused at first. "What is this?" "Open it." She peeled the seal open slowly, like she thought it was some kind of surprise. Her eyes landed on the top page, the eviction notice, and she blinked hard. Then she pulled out the photos. Her face dropped. She froze for a full 10 seconds. I watched the color drain from her cheeks as her lips parted, but no sound came out. Finally, her voice cracked. What is this?" "You tell me," I said. My voice came out flat, steady. "You and Marco. Multiple dates. Public affection. Repeated lies about where you were going. You can stop pretending now." She set the photos down with trembling fingers. "Oliver, it's not what it looks like." "Stop." I stood up slowly. "You had a chance to be honest. Instead, you lied to my face for weeks. You gave me speeches about needing peace, needing space to reflect. What you really needed was an alibi." She shook her head. A shiny, "Please, can we just talk?" "I didn't mean for this to." "There's nothing to talk about." I cut in. "You have 30 days to vacate. Legally, you're a guest. You're not on the lease, not on the mortgage, and as of tonight, you're not part of this home anymore." Her mouth opened again, maybe to cry, maybe to beg, but I turned and walked into the bedroom. She didn't follow. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing her shuffle around the kitchen, trying to process what just happened. She didn't slam doors. She didn't scream. She moved slowly, like she was afraid even the walls might judge her now. When the lights finally went off in the living room, I exhaled for the first time in hours. My chest felt hollow, but clean, like I'd finally cut out something toxic. The mask was off. No more excuses. No more waiting. The countdown had begun. I woke up the next morning to silence. No scent of coffee brewing. No clinking dishes. Just the low hum of the fridge and the faint whir of city traffic. Tessa was sitting at the dining table, wearing one of my old hoodies, the one she always borrowed when she felt cozy. Her eyes were swollen, makeup smudged, and she didn't look like the girl from those photos anymore. She looked small and furious. "You really think this is fair?" she said the moment I stepped into the kitchen. I didn't answer right away. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. "You read the notice. You've got 29 days. She scoffed. "Well, after 3 years together, this is what I get? A damn envelope and an ultimatum." "You got caught," I said flatly. "I gave you chances. I trusted you. You didn't just cheat. You lied to my face over and over." She stood now, arms crossed. "So what? People mess up, Oliver. Relationships are complicated. Sleeping with someone else while pretending to meditate twice a week isn't complicated," I said. "It's calculated." Tessa's voice cracked with fake restraint. "I've supported you through everything, your long work hours, your burnout phases, your family drama. I've been here, putting in just as much effort." I stared at her. "You supported me by disappearing with another man?" She opened her mouth, then shut it again. I could tell she was scrambling now, trying to reframe the narrative. And that's when my phone rang. "Angela." I let it ring once before answering. "Morning. What the hell did you do to my sister?" Her voice was sharp, defensive, the same tone Tessa used whenever she knew she was wrong but didn't want to admit it. I walked to the window. "You mean besides catching her cheating? Served her with a legal eviction and gave her 30 days notice. Pretty generous if you ask me. She's devastated, Oliver. You blindsided her. She blindsided me. For weeks." Angela huffed. "You two have a history. You've built a life together. You can't just throw it all away. Watch me." There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice dipped into guilt trip mode. "You know she doesn't have anywhere to go. She put her heart into that place." "No, she put her body into Marco's bed," I replied coldly. "And now she can put her stuff into boxes." Angela tried to keep going, but I ended the call without another word. I wasn't doing this game. Not with Tessa. Not with her sister. Not with anyone trying to explain away betrayal. When I turned around, Tessa was still standing there, her eyes wet now, her lips trembling just enough to make me wonder if this was a performance or the first crack of something real. "I don't have a job right now," she whispered. "I don't know where I'll go." "You've got 29 days," I repeated. Use them wisely. I walked past her, grabbed my laptop, and headed out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left. Because from that moment on, this wasn't about feelings. It was about boundaries. It didn't take long for the mood in the condo to turn sour. Within days, the polite mask Tessa wore cracked completely. She didn't leave, not yet, but the way she moved through the space shifted. She wasn't a guest anymore. She was an occupant on borrowed time, and she wanted me to feel it. It started small. The passive-aggressive notes. Please don't move my things without asking. She scribbled on a post-it stuck to the bathroom mirror after I folded her laundry and set it on her side of the bed. You forgot to buy oat milk. Again, was taped to the fridge. Then the kitchen standoff began. She cooked elaborate meals for herself, leaving pots soaking in the sink and greasy pans still warm on the stove, like some domestic protest. She turned the thermostat up to 75 during the day, knowing I hated the heat. My office space started smelling like steamed vegetables and incense. One morning, I opened the dryer and found my gym clothes soaking wet, balled under her damp towels. Another morning, I found all the mugs stacked in her bedroom, crusted with tea stains. She didn't say a word, just smiled when we passed each other, like this was a game she had every intention of winning. She still slept in the guest room, but I started locking the door to mine at night, not because I thought she'd do anything dramatic, but because the tension had become thick, electric, like something waiting to snap. Angela, of course, couldn't help herself. She showed up on a Saturday afternoon unannounced, rapping hard on the door. I answered without opening it fully. What now? I asked. She shoved past me before I could stop her. Tessa followed from the hall, clearly expecting backup. I told her not to come, she said, voice too sweet. Angela spun around, arms crossed. You think throwing someone out is justice? You think humiliating her like this won't come back on you? I laughed once, sharp and cold. Humiliating her? I didn't cheat. Angela stepped closer, dropping her voice like she was issuing a threat. You really want everyone at work to find out what you're doing? That you threw a woman out on the street with no warning? I tilted my head. If you think I haven't documented everything, go ahead. Start spreading rumors. But I'll make sure the truth spreads faster. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to push back. I've got photo proof. I've got texts. I've got audio of your voicemail calling me a cold bastard with no soul, which, by the way, is now in my legal folder labeled defamation threats. Angela went quiet, then stormed out without another word. That night, I did two things. First, I installed a cloud-connected camera system. Small, discreet, motion-sensitive. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one facing the front door. All of it streamed straight to my phone, time-stamped and stored. Second, I moved all my valuables, passport, checkbooks, spare keys, even the documents from the lawyer, into a lockbox. I hid it in the locked closet in my room. I wasn't taking chances, and it turned out I was right to be cautious. The next morning, while vacuuming under the bed, I found something tucked in the back of Tessa's drawer, a small velvet box that used to hold my grandfather's cufflinks. Inside was my backup credit card and an envelope with $200 cash. She'd stolen it from the safe drawer in the hall. I didn't say a word. I didn't confront her. I just added it to the folder and locked everything tighter. This wasn't war. Not yet, but it was close. By the time there were only 5 days left on the eviction notice, the condo felt like a pressure cooker. Everything was quiet on the surface, but underneath that silence was tension, thick, coiled, and ready to snap at the slightest provocation. Tessa had shifted from passive-aggressive to desperate. One morning, I found her in the kitchen crying into her cereal. I walked in, grabbed my coffee, and she wiped her eyes quickly like she hadn't meant for me to see. You really won't change your mind? She asked, not looking at me. I didn't answer right away. I stirred in my cream slowly. I'm serious, Oliver. This doesn't have to end like this. I finally looked at her. You're right. It could have ended with honesty. She winced, then turned away. That afternoon, she started bargaining. If you give me just a few more weeks, I can line something up. I've been looking at shared leases. I even found a women's co-living space in Oak Park. You still have 5 days, I replied. You don't have to be like this, she muttered. But I did, because every time I looked at her, I didn't see my girlfriend anymore. I saw a liar who tried to play both sides, the loving partner and the secret lover. She didn't feel like someone I once loved. She felt like someone I had to legally remove. My support network showed up in quiet ways. Matt texted every other day, just a simple, need anything? My friend Carla, a family law paralegal, dropped by with a printout of renters' rights and tips for handling hostile guests. Even Darren, the building manager, emailed me to confirm the elevator reservation for move-out day. Let me know if you want security present, he wrote. We've seen worse. I appreciated the backup more than I could say. I scheduled the movers for Friday morning. The locksmith was booked for Friday at 1 p.m. sharp. I had 4 friends on standby, not to fight, not to argue, but to be there. Witnesses, support, quiet muscle, if it came to that. The night before eviction day, she cooked pasta. It was strange, the way the apartment smelled almost normal again. I sat at the counter while she boiled water, like it was just another Thursday night. This used to be home, she said without turning around. You know that. It stopped being home when I stopped being the only one with a key to your heart. She sniffed. That was poetic. You rehearsing? No, I said. I'm ready. Later that night, she knocked on my bedroom door. Can we just sleep in the same room? One last time. No, I said. I'll see you in the morning. There was a long pause. Then I heard her footsteps retreat, soft and slow. And just like that, the countdown ticked to 0. Friday morning came, clear and cold. The sun was out, but it didn't warm much. I stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching the moving truck rumble up to the curb at 8:56 a.m., for minutes ahead of schedule. Tessa was still in the guest room. The door was shut, but I could hear her pacing. No footsteps, just pacing, over and over. She knew what day it was. I'd reminded her 2 nights ago, just so there'd be no excuses. By 9:15, my friends started arriving, Matt, Carla, and 2 buddies from work. They were quiet, respectful, nodding politely as they stepped inside. They weren't here to gloat. They were here to witness, and if necessary, intervene. At 9:30, I knocked on Tessa's door. Movers are here. No answer. Another knock. Tessa. She opened the door 5 minutes later, dressed in leggings and a hoodie, hair messy, eyes sharp with panic. "You're really doing this," she said, arms crossed tightly across her chest. "You knew I was. I thought maybe you'd. I don't know. Cool off. Talk it through." "I did cool off," I said. "That's why we're not screaming right now." She scoffed, storming past me, barefoot, toward the living room. "This is insane. You're throwing me out like I'm a stranger. You made yourself a stranger." The movers got to work, and Tessa did her best to obstruct them. She started directing traffic. "That's fragile. Wait, don't pack that yet." Like this was some mutual decision. But they'd been briefed. They ignored her and followed my instructions. At 10:03, Angela arrived. She didn't knock. She banged. "Hart, I'm coming in," she shouted from the hall. "No, you're not," I called back. Tessa ran to the door and flung it open. "He's throwing me out." Angela pushed inside like a storm, eyes blazing. "You cold-hearted bastard. This is a violation of everything you promised." I held up a hand and handed her a copy of the eviction notice, complete with timestamps and legal approval. "She's a guest. This is legal. You're a trespasser right now." "Are you serious?" she snapped. "You're hiding behind paperwork?" "No, I'm hiding behind boundaries. There's a difference." At 11 a.m., we were almost done. Her boxes lined the hallway. Movers were bringing down the last of her things, mostly yoga gear, clothing, and a few decorative items she refused to leave behind. That's when Marco showed up. He walked in slowly, holding a potted plant and looking like someone who'd been dragged to the wrong house. Tessa's jaw dropped. "You came?" she asked. Yeah, I thought maybe I should help." Angela glared at him like he'd just farted in church. "You're the reason this is happening." Marco looked at me, then at the boxes. "I didn't think it'd be like this." I said nothing. I just pointed to the last stack of her stuff. "Take whatever she can't carry." The locksmith showed up at 12:55 p.m., right on time. As the locks were being changed, Angela hovered in the corner, watching like a general surveying the aftermath of a lost battle. Tessa sat on the floor by the window, clutching a duffel bag like it was a lifeline. I opened the door and looked at her. "It's time." She stood slowly, walked out with Marco. Angela followed, still seething. None of them said goodbye. As the door shut behind them, the new lock clicked softly into place. And just like that, I had my home back. The condo felt different that night. Not just quieter, cleaner, lighter. The air didn't carry that low-grade tension anymore, the kind that hums in the background when 2 people stop trusting each other but keep pretending they still do. I opened the windows, even though it was chilly out. Let the wind push through every room. I wanted her scent gone. Her incense. That overpriced sandalwood spray she used after yoga. I tossed the leftover oat milk from the fridge and scrubbed the guest bathroom until it smelled like bleach and nothing else. Matt and Carla stayed for an hour after the locksmith left, just hanging out. We didn't talk about her much. Just laughed about old college stories, drank a couple beers, and ordered tacos. Normal stuff. Easy stuff. It felt good. Familiar. That night, I finally slept. Really slept. No door creaking open. No emotional landmines waiting in the morning. No wondering where she'd been or why her phone was face down on the counter. Just peace. Of course, it didn't last long. By Sunday, the smear campaign started. Tessa posted a cryptic Instagram story. "Some people will kick you out of their life because they can't handle accountability. Healing is hard when you're being punished for it." Angela followed up with a comment under a photo of the 2 of them holding coffee mugs. "Strong women scare weak men." Then the private messages started coming. A mutual friend texted, "Hey man, just heard what happened. Sorry things got ugly. You okay?" I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, because I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Let them talk. Let them twist the narrative. I knew the truth. And the people who mattered did too. By midweek, the place finally felt like mine again. I put her old glass candles and wall prints in a donation box. Rearranged the bookshelves. Took the throw pillows she bought and stuffed them in a closet. Not out of spite, just because they weren't mine. They never were. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror one morning. I looked different, less tired, sharper around the eyes. Not happy exactly, but whole. That was when I realized something important. I didn't feel heartbroken, not in the way I expected. I felt relieved. She had betrayed me, yes. But even before the affair, something had been missing. Her attention, her transparency, her respect. The silence between us had started long before I hired Frank. I just finally turned up the volume and heard it for what it was. I stood in the living room that night, lights off, just watching the city flicker outside my window. This was my home again. And for the first time in months, I didn't dread what came next. Healing wasn't going to be a dramatic epiphany or some emotional detox. It was going to be small steps, clean dishes, quiet mornings, good friends, peace, it turns out, wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It just came in, took a seat, and stayed a while.